Welcome to weekday coronavirus-driven mind stuff. My name is George Ortega, and it is Tuesday, June 30th, 2020 at 4:39 p.m. And this is episode number 58. I just attended this Wild Soul Circle Zoom room that's out of Portland, Oregon. I've mentioned it several times, and it's a weekly event, and it just completely shifts my state, to feeling more connected, more optimistic, more in touch with positivity. And in this instance, it's making me feel more courageous, more trusting. We dealt with the issue of trust to a certain extent in the group, and like today, I want to reflect, how this group, this amazing leader, Kristen Yates, has the kind of experience she created. It's inspired me to take a chance to say what is more on my mind about the world, about what we're going through and why. Ordinarily, I'm not, I'm not as honest as I'd prefer to be, because I don't like to condemn people. And all right, before I start, because I'm going to, I believe, be pretty forceful in what I say. But I have to preface it all with this understanding that perhaps makes it easier for me to say what I'm going to say. And it's this idea that, like, my personal understanding, it's not a belief, it's an understanding that is shared by the top minds in the world: Einstein, Darwin, Freud, Newton. It's an understanding that to me is undeniable, but the world isn't there yet on it. But it's this idea that, we don't have a free will. We don't get to decide who we become, who we are, who raises us, what country we live in, all these factors that make us who we are, that we're in this world at all. We don't get to decide any of that. And so, like, I say that because that's important, because, what I'm about to talk about, it's not fundamentally our faults, but it's important to consider it nonetheless, because, the way this reality works seems to be that even though nothing is really fundamentally our fault or our credit, the good we do, it's not really fundamentally up to us, neither is the bad. We do tend to get rewarded or punished according to what we do. So with that in mind, we should be thankful that this pandemic isn't 10 times worse, because I'm not going to include myself in this, because I've been a vegan for 15 years, a vegetarian since 1992, and I understand that I've devoted hundreds of hours to try to help people, shift away from basically what you're doing. Again, I'm not going to include myself because it would be dishonest. So sometimes I'll include myself just as a diplomatic gesture, but no, this is something that probably you're doing, unless you're part of the 2 or 3% of Americans who are vegan. But you're basically paying people to inflict so much harm, so much pain and suffering on these animals, cows and chickens and pigs, who are more intelligent than dogs, and feel pain, and you don't care. You put it out of your minds. You don't care. You just deny. You're in denial, and you're no better than Trump. You're no better than the average criminal, who we basically consider a psychopath or sociopath, who hurts people because that's what they do, without concern for the welfare of the people they hurt. And you know this. This isn't, this is, you're in denial. And living in Westchester as I have my entire life, I get this. In other words, you say to yourself, well, yeah, everybody else is doing it, so like, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm safe. In other words, like, nobody's going to come after me for this. Well, the problem with that, that you haven't realized yet is that, if you're like most people in Westchester, most people in the United States, you believe in God or higher power. You believe that, that there is a morality, that when we do good, we tend to be rewarded. When we do bad, we tend to be punished. If you're an atheist and you have different beliefs, I can't help you. I'm sorry. That's a different perspective. That's about 10% of the population. But for the rest of us, you have that understanding. So how could you not get that this pandemic is the result of your paying people to torture animals? Chickens, they stack chickens in cages about a foot by a foot by a foot, these boxes. They'll stack 3 or 4 or 5 chickens in a cage like this. And they can't even like spread their wings for weeks at a time. You have a pig who's confined to a gestation crate for months at a time, not even being able to turn around. You have chickens, thousands of them in these hangars, these airplane hangar type facilities, that they're living for about the 7 or 8 weeks of their lives in their own urine and feces, with the stench so horrible that the workers there have to have masks to not inhale that ammonia, that horrible, and this is like what? So you can like buy meat and fish and dairy and pay less? I'm sorry, you are extremely evil. You're extremely evil. You're no less evil than Trump, no less evil than Hitler, these people. What we're doing, what you're doing to these animals is worse than what happened to the Holocaust survivors, to the Holocaust victims. It's worse than what happened to slaves. It's worse than, you can't compare anything that has happened to human beings with the treatment of these, what you're paying people to do for you. And you don't care. You don't care. So like, don't be surprised that this is happening. Because if you truly believe that in karma, in just desserts, that what comes around goes around, with just that we have this morality as part of the way the world works, you can't seriously believe that you can continue to do this without repercussions. And again, you should feel lucky that it isn't 10 times worse. And this may be the last, civilization may be like on its last legs because we refuse to look at reality, because like we have been corrupted by, especially here in Westchester, here in the United States, here in the rich countries, we've been corrupted by our fortune. We've led very fortunate lives in so many ways. We have like, clean water, we have enough to eat, we have, homes and so many advantages that we actually deny, I mean, it doesn't extend, and this is something I'm not going to indict myself on either. It's like that, before I started working on helping animals, I was trying to like get people to understand that that close to 1 billion people, without safe drinking water, enough to eat, medicine is just extremely wrong considering the kind of world we live in where we have so much. So because you're so selfish and so greedy and so callous and so in denial, so refusing to face this reality of who you are, that's why this is happening to you. And it's happening, perhaps it's happening to me because I haven't done enough. I've been working on this for 35 years. I keep on talking to people, and it's not just you, it's like our leaders, our clerics. There's a cleric who, I'm not going to mention names, but the person believes that no, this isn't from God, that God wouldn't do this. No, God rewards, God punishes, God holds us accountable. This is not New Testament stuff. This is Old Testament. This is the way things are. And for you to not get that is to not get God, not to get religion, not to get Judaism, not to get Christianity. So wake up, wake up. This is happening because you are really horrible people, because you pay people to torture animals, literally 60 billion every year. And this has been going on for year after year for decades. And you don't care. You put it out of your minds, because if you thought about it, you wouldn't be able to eat your meat and your fish and your dairy. And you don't want to you don't want to go through that sacrifice. That's too much for you to consider that, and you're not interested in it. You don't realize that you don't need meat, to be healthy. There's a lot of vegan athletes who are a lot stronger and healthier than you are, and they don't eat any meat at all. So I mean, pity yourselves if you want, but take responsibility. Understand that this is happening because you're such horrible people, because you pretend to care. You may care about your children and your friends and your spouses, but that care is really about yourself. These are people who are impacting your life. These are people who make up your life. And then, so yeah, if you don't care about them, you feel pain. But yeah, you thought until now that you could get away with treating these animals, with paying people to torture animals for you. Because if but you can't. I mean, this is what God, if we live in a world of morality where we're punished for what we do that's wrong, this is what's happening to us. And don't be surprised. Think about it. All right, so that's who you are. You're a horrible person if you're eating animals. And you're no less horrible than Trump, no less horrible than Hitler. Think of the most vile person you can think of. You're no less horrible than they are, because that's how horrible this is. These animals are sentient. If you own a cat or a dog, this. This is sure, you love your cat and your dog, but you could care less about, animals just as sentient as they are. I'm sorry, you don't love animals. You love what your cat or your dog brings you. It's about yourself. It's selfishness. All right, so now that you know who you are, and why this is happening, maybe we can get into why you refuse to face this, why you refuse to face reality and just turn away and refuse to acknowledge this. It gets back to how I started this episode. You believe that you have a free will. And if you believe you have a free will, you're blaming yourself. Deep down in a part of you that you wouldn't dare, confide to another, and you don't dare just acknowledge to yourself. But if you didn't, your belief in free will leads you to understand or to misunderstand, to blame yourself for this. And that's why you don't face it. You're saying, yes, I can't believe that I'm so horrible, so I'm not going to look at how I'm treating animals. Look at how I'm paying people to torture animals for me. So that makes sense. Well, consider you did not create yourself. You were born into this world and you were conditioned by advertisers, by the school system, by your parents, by our political system, by our society to be who you are. Basically a callous, cruel, selfish, greedy person. And that's who we are. I'm sorry, that's who we are in these rich countries. And if you believe in free will, you can't face that. So you're going to deny anything that leads you to understand that, like how you're treating animals. If you understand, if you agree with Einstein and Newton and Darwin and Freud, who are so much more intelligent than you are, and these scientists are tops in their field. They're the tops in science, And they came up with this conclusion, this understanding from 3 different fields, from philosophy, from biology, from psychology. It's not like it's a fringe kind of an idea. You know, even if you bother to explore it on your own, you're not free to be as happy as you'd like to be. You're not free to be as virtuous as you'd like to be. Because if you truly had a free will, we wouldn't be eating these animals. We wouldn't be paying people to torture these animals. And if you truly had a free will, you'd be a lot happier. You know, I'm sorry, the average level of happiness here in the United States is about 73%. That's not all that happy. You're happy about 50% of each day. And you accept it because you figure that's the way it is. But if you had a free will, you'd be a lot happier. We all would. So again, the reason to understand this is because to the extent that you can understand that you don't have a free will, then maybe you can open your eyes. You can, you know, step out of your denial and see what you're doing, you know. It can get a lot worse, you know. There's a super volcano by Yellowstone. I mean, if it erupts, then the end of civilization. We go back to the Stone Age. You know, if a huge, large enough asteroid or comet strikes us, the end of civilization. We just, like, all these blessings we have, you know, if we're alive, you know, those of us who lived through this are probably in a worse state than those of us who died. But a lot more can happen, you know, and has happened before on this planet. So you got to ask yourself, you know, like, do you believe that we get rewarded and punished according to what we do? If you do, then yeah, then stop eating animals, stop paying people. I mean, and you can't even, like, do some research, for God's sake. I mean, like, you know, the way the corruptness of the system, you can't videotape what's going on in these factory farms, this abuse. It's against the law, because who are more evil than you? The people who run these factories and the politicians who work for them. You know, they don't want you to see how evil you are, because, you know, because they make a lot of money. But if you understood how much suffering goes on, you probably would stop or eating meat. But no, so you might say to yourself, so yes, I'm going to, like, eat grass-fed, free-range chickens. So here's how corrupt our system is. You know, by law, they're allowed to call chickens free range if they're, like, let's say 10,000 of them, like I described before, in this airplane hangar-sized contained facility, you know, that they have to have fans going all the time to just, like, remove the stench, the odor. If you have tens of thousands of chickens in a place like this, and you have a doorway leading to a plot of grass, 12 by 12 feet in diameter, in area, square feet. Well, 12. If you have just that mechanism, you can call that free range. Technically, legally, by law here in the United States, that's free range. That's how corrupt this system is, and you don't care. You don't care. You don't. You know, you've seen the commercials on TV. And you turn away because you know, you want to eat your meat, and you want to eat your chicken, and you don't want to pay much because you don't care. I'm sorry, you're horrible people, you know. And like, you know, well, maybe you care about your children, you know, maybe you care about your children. Maybe if you don't care about your, you know, what you're doing, maybe you need to understand that this pandemic is not a 100 year event, and every 100-year event. This pandemic, you know, SARS, MERS, Ebola, these all happened within the last 20 years, and it's increasing. So we, you know, you get your acts together, you know, think about what you're doing, think deeply, stop hiding from reality, stop maintaining your denial, confront your evil, confront you're paying people to torture these animals for you, and repent, reform, gain your humanity back, gain your soul back. Because if you don't, your children are not going to have a future, and you may not have a future. Who knows if we'll get through this? We get through this, the next one comes. There was actually, look at the news. There was a bird flu type pandemic, a new one that just emerged in China. And it's too early to tell whether they can contain it. But, and then like here in the United States, a couple of months ago in a pig farm, they had to kill 30,000 pigs because there was an infection, a pandemic. So, I feel bad for you because you don't have a free will. But that aside, you deserve this. You're horrible people. You're more horrible than Trump. Or not any less horrible, and you continue being that way. And if you understand God, if you believe in God, how is God not going to come to the rescue of these animals? How is God going to basically turn aside indefinitely and allow us to be so cruel? I'm sorry, you know this from your own experience. Somebody in your life is doing something really wrong, and you're patient and you're patient. And we do this as a society, and finally our patience ends. It's like with the police brutality, that's been going on for decades. Finally, enough is enough. Okay, finally, we realize how wrong it is, and we fight back against that. So God, if you believe in God or a higher power who judges us, who rewards us and punishes us according to what we do, don't expect another reprieve. Don't expect to be forgiven for this, because it's too much. You've gone too far. Yeah, I mean, like we can, you can repent, you can reform, you can look at what you're doing and understand how evil it is, and stop seeing yourself, as a good person when you're not. And if it helps to understand that it's not really up to you, that you are the way you are because of factors outside of your control, fine. Yes, that is the reality. So don't blame yourself, but acknowledge who you are so you can change. You're like an alcoholic who denies that they're an alcoholic and they can't ever change. So they hit rock bottom, and this is our rock bottom as a civilization. And finally you change because you're in so much pain. That's the reality. So, yeah, talk to people, learn, for God's sake. I mean, pick up this information is not hidden. It's on the internet. There's books written about it, authoritative books by people in the know, people who've worked in these industries, people who've seen it, people who understand, scientists, doctors. Get involved. Stop being so selfish, so concerned with your personal life, your personal ambitions and desires, that you're willing to tolerate 60 billion animals, as sentient as your dogs and cats are, just enduring the life, an unimaginably horrible life, just so you could get cheaper dairy and meat and fish products. You're horrible people. I'm sorry. You need to understand that, because unless you understand that, it's kind of like, we let me tell you something. We imprison people for years for much less than this. Embezzlement. I mean, like all these economic crimes and stuff. They're not nearly as horrible as what you and your friends and your family and probably most of the people are doing to these animals. And you can't say, well, it's not me. It's like, it's them. It's this industry. I'm just like, I'm just a consumer. I'm just a customer. I'm just buying this. No, if you didn't buy these products, then they wouldn't, they would close down these farms. So, I hope this sinks in, because and I'm not gonna suffer it. I mean, if the world, you know, goes to hell as it seems to be going because you guys refuse to acknowledge, you know, the extent of your evil, so be it. You know, maybe the world is better off without humanity. Maybe it's better that you know, one of these huge super volcanoes erupts and just, like, you know, completely exterminates us as a species. You know, that seems to be good. You know, you would have thought with all the blessings we have, with all we've been given, with all that the people have fought for our freedom, for all this that we have in the past, people have paid with their lives for all our blessings. You would have thought that we'd be grateful, and we'd have this sense of moral obligation, of responsibility to make the world better. But no, we've gone in the opposite direction. We've become like spoiled children who are just like, I shouldn't, you know, I shouldn't demean children like that, because children, I'm sorry, they're not that evil. They're not this evil. We've become just so corrupt. So, and it's you and it's your friends and it's your family, and you don't talk about it. You know, you live in denial. And so this is what happens, you know, and don't expect for it to end until you change. You know, that seems to be what's happening here. And if the politicians tell you otherwise, it's because they're even more corrupt than you are. You know, they look at Elliot, what's his name? Elliot Engel, the New York State congressman who was just defeated. You know, he was caught on a hot mic, you know, about talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. If I wasn't up for re-election, I wouldn't care. He's a Democrat, you know, and so if the Democrats are like this, imagine how the Republicans are, you know. All right, so we've got about a minute left to go. I hope I've reached you, you know. I hope I've reached you, because if I haven't, then you're screwed. I'm sorry, you're screwed. Your family's screwed. Your kids are screwed, because, like, you know, we're living in a world where God has lost God's patience. You know, and if you don't understand that, you pay the price. We all pay the price. You know, I'm probably paying the price for not having said this, you know, months or years ago, for like, you know, for choosing to not be confrontational. You know, because that was probably wrong. I should have said this a long time ago, and I should probably continue saying this until you get it, until you wake up, you move out of your denial and understand how evil you're being. And you know, I've talked about this before. There's a way out of this. You know, we don't. You know, if you don't want to be vegan, then help us finance this new industry, this clean meat, lab-grown industry, where we can stop factory farming. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.